and welcome to Season 5, Episode 16 of the Sajin Photography Podcast. I am your host, Jason Teal. Today, I'm excited to share my latest photography adventure, from a while ago, out to one of my favorite sunrise locations in South Korea. Can you guess where I went to? Gampo. Yeah, I went back there again a few weeks ago. And as I set off to Gampo, it's a place I visit fairly regularly. If you follow my work, you know that I head up there numerous times a year to capture the sunrise or hope to find that one beautiful one. This trip, however, was a little bit different. I had no real plan in mind, and I just wanted to go and explore and find some new locations around the area. So instead of my usual spot, which is sort of along the beach in front of the Songdae lighthouse, I ventured sort of down the rocks where a lot of the people go snorkeling. It's become a huge Instagram spot, and I sort of used the cement bridges as an element in my shots, and I was trying to work with that as best I could. For those of you who haven't been up to Gampo and you haven't heard me in the numerous podcasts talk about it, it's a coastal town located kind of in the southeastern part of South Korea. It's well known for fishing and also stunning sunrise views over the East Sea. It's in one of those locations just down from Homigat, so it's in the area of the first sort of sunrises that hit the Korean peninsula, but it's not well known for the first one, but it also offers some great views. Now, the Songdae lighthouse, which is a beautiful lighthouse, it's the pagoda-shaped lighthouse, which also now has sort of like a 3D, 4D light experience inside. It's something to check out. Now, this is a prominent feature, but it's also surrounded by numerous other well-made lighthouses, very theme-oriented. And it provides the perfect backdrop for sunrise photography. The rugged volcanic coastline and the serene early morning atmosphere make it an ideal spot for photographers of, all levels, because you don't have to be a master these early morning sunrise shots. You just have to be out there at the right time. Now, when the sun finally decided to appear on this particular trip, it was pretty lackluster. As any photographer knows, all photography is experimentation. Sometimes you don't get the spectacular sunrise that you hope for, but that's just part of the adventure. And I sort of expect that. I wasn't really sure what to expect on this trip and what was going to happen, so I came prepared. I maneuvered around the rocks, trying extremely hard not to fall in, because it's pretty precarious down there. The rocks are steep and sharp. And there was actually a moment of panic when my iPhone almost took a dip into the water, but I managed to catch it just in time. That iPhone 7 Plus that I have simply will not die. Hopefully I get a new one at some point in time. However, despite the underwhelming sunrise, I decided to make the most of my day out in Gampo. After all, dull sunrises, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't capture compelling images. The challenge lies in finding sort of creative ways to work with what you got. And for instance, using the cement bridges as leading lines in my composition added to an interesting element for these shots. I just wasn't focusing on the rocks and the sun as most people typically would. So these man-made structures juxtaposed with the natural ruggedness of the coastline created a unique contrast, something I kind of liked. Now, after getting my fill of the rocks and the lighthouses, I scrambled back to my car and headed towards the port where the daily catches are being auctioned off at sunrise. Now, this is something that I've always wanted to catch and sort of just see what goes on there. Now, this is something, I don't know, I just find it fascinating. It's the hustle and bustle of the auction, the vibrant colors of the fresh catch, or something like that. Or maybe just the characters that you meet that make great photographic opportunities. Now, problem is, being a foreigner in a place like Gampo, I was quickly spotted. And I got a couple of, the classic X-hands telling me, don't photograph here. And despite this, I just kind of wandered around the port area and tried to see what I could find. And I kind of headed out towards the other lighthouses just to grab some quick shots, as they're actually kind of nice too. They sort of have the imprints they look similar to if you've ever been to the Gyeongju World Expo, that huge Gyeongju Tower. They're modeled after that. So it was kind of cool. Now, for me, this was just sort of a creative experiment. I was trying to see what interesting scenes I could kind of find out in that area and just sort of wander around. Now, I think it's important to remember that photography isn't always about getting that perfect shot. Sometimes it's about the process of exploration and discovery. And that's sort of why I really like kind of wandering around places like Gampo. I believe that, whether you're a pro photographer or just like the rest of us hobbyists, it's an essential exercise to kind of work those creative muscles from time to time. You never know what you're going to find. Now, driving back from Gampo always puts my mind at ease. I've traveled these roads for the better part of 2 decades. Always, I love driving up and down the coastal highway, like the one up to Gampo. In the early morning, it's just something peaceful and quiet. The way the road winds along the edge of the coast, it's just something that you got to do once. Even better on the motorcycle, but I'll accept a car with the air conditioning this time of year anyway. Now, just you have to imagine these roads that sort of skirt along and go through these coastal towns, and you can see the fishing boats leaving to go get the morning catch, and the colors of the sunrise. It's moments like these that sort of remind me why I fell in love with this style of photography in the first place. Now, let's talk about sunrise photography and the techniques that I use. For those of you looking to head out to Gampo, the Songdaemal Lighthouse is a great area to start. Now, I recommend heading down to the beach and getting as close to the water as safely possible. For those early morning shots, you want to get there way, way, way before the sun is even ready to rise. I use the app called Photo Pills to get the timing just about right. Typically, I have my gear ready, and if I can get out there early enough, I usually plan to get up around 3 a.m. and then get into location around nautical twilight. For those of you that don't know what it is, nautical twilight is the period between nautical twilight is the period when the sun is between 12 and 6 degrees below the horizon in the morning. This is before blue hour, so it's dark. It's the only way I can put it. But if you get it set up and you're there before blue hour, it is a perfect time. Blue hour provides sort of a better light, and if you're lucky, it will basically be a nice blue color, which will turn into purples and pinks and everything like that as the sun's coming up. Now, the morning blue hour is really when you want to be there ready to get your shots. This is when I basically have to have all of my settings just right. Now, during blue hour, the sky, as I said before, takes a deep blue with, everything is like soft and diffused light, but sometimes it's going to be, that magical purple and pinks and stuff like that. But it doesn't really last that long. So it's crucial to be ready. For those who might be new to this, blue hour is the magical time for us landscape photographers just before sunrise and just after sunset, when the sky is predominantly, well, I guessed it, blue. The colors are rich and deep, and the light is soft, making it basically the most favorite time for photographers. Now, as a side note, I will say that if you're shooting night photography, blue hour is when you really want to be actively shooting, especially cityscapes and because there's still enough light to show the detail around you, and you're not going to get just like a massive black splat on the top of your screen where the sky should be. Now, one technique I often use during the sunrise photography before the sun is actually up is long exposure. And for this, I usually use my K&F 10-stop ND filter with the kind of the magnetic polarizer as well. The ND filters, or neutral density filters, reduce the amount of light entering the lens, allowing for longer exposures. even during daylight. But the 10 stop filter is particularly useful for creating the dreamy, smooth water effect that you see in many of my shots. But keep in mind, you're going to have something like the PhotoPills app to figure out how long to expose the shot for. And when you're shooting in these low light, purple sky, blue hour conditions, it's going to take a heck of a long time. Like I'm talking 5 to 10 minutes to get a proper exposure. So be aware of that. Now, here's basically, if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's my sort of step by step on how to use the 10 stop filter. Now, before you even stick the thing on, you must have your composition and everything dialed in. Typically, what I do is I'll try and get the focus nailed, whether you have to be manually focusing it or using a flashlight to trigger the autofocus, but get that set up, get your composition, and then turn off the autofocus, or it will try and focus when you have everything set up, and it's going to throw it out of focus. Now, once you got all of the composition stuff and everything sort of ready to go, then you can attach the ND filter. And I like to use the magnetic filters as it just makes everything that much smoother to just stick on the lens. And for those who haven't used the magnetic filter system, the KNF ones, you can stack them. So I usually put on the polarizing filter first, and then I throw on the 10 stop ND filter on top of that. And it really makes everything sort of smooth, because if you do have to refocus or recompose, you can just pop them off. But just know that you're not going to be able to focus or recompose with the ND filter on because it's just black. Now, finally, for the settings and the exposure time, I use the PhotoPills app as a timer. So what basically I do is I take a shot without the filters on, and then I throw those calculations. So if I'm shooting at like, I don't know, f4 at whatever 1/50th of a second or whatever, I'm just picking up things out of my brain here. I put those calculations into the PhotoPills app, and it will tell me how long to set the ND filter, the bulb timer, for. Now, if you are shooting on a Canon, there's kind of an interesting way that you can trigger the timer if you don't have an intervalometer, or to be able to sort of lock out your camera in bulb mode. And what that is that if you go into your settings and you switch it to the timer mode, it will not activate if you don't have the timer release for your camera set. And then you go into the bulb mode and then into the menu screen, and you will find basically the bulb timer. You'll put in the time that PhotoPills have said that is a good time. Now, keep in mind, there's a couple of points here. It's the calculations that PhotoPills gives you are for like a consistent light. And what I mean by that is if your exposure is for 10 minutes, I would say dial it back a little bit. Err towards underexposed than overexposed. Because what basically you're happening is that during that time, the light is going to get brighter because, the sun's coming up. And trust me when I say I've ruined many a shots by blindly following what PhotoPills say. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that the light drastically changes during the time that you are exposing for that shot. So just round it off. And kind of basically what I mean is that, say, for example, that initial test shot I take was at 1/30th of a second. The 10 stop filter, the exposure time might extend to around 30 seconds or more. So if you are photographing something that's 10 minutes long, the light is going to completely change during the time that your shutter is open. Now, with all of that in mind, now you're ready to take the shot. So while you're waiting patiently for that exposure to complete, the results can be mesmerizing. Smooth, silky water, soft, streaky clouds, adding all a sense of motion to the image. But also, too, it can be a huge piss off if you don't get these kind of calculations correct, because Sometimes, as I said before, it gets really bright, and then when you look at the final image, it's all blown out because the calculations were for a darker scene and it's now lighter. So again, light is increasing. You need to dial back that time just a little bit. Just keep that in mind. Now, Photo Pills, I keep mentioning this, it is a great app. If you have to buy it because it helps so much here. It gives me sort of an approximate time using the timer setting for the filters that I have, but it also has a really cool AR mode in the app. AR means augmented reality. This app is so worth it. So what it does is that it triggers your camera, like not your main camera, but your phone camera, and it overlays the path of the sun. And why that's important is as the sun comes up, if you're ready and waiting, you know exactly where the sun is coming up and it'll tell you the exact time. That's where kind of the whole AR thing really helps because you can use it as a compass, set your camera up, get the composition, and the sun will boop, pop up over the horizon and you're already waiting for it. There's no guesswork. Yeah, so that's like, I mean, guys, like I can't say this enough, get that app. Now, while the technical aspects of sunrise photography and long exposures are crucial, the artistic side is equally important. It's sort of about capturing that mood and the feeling of movement. So use this time to sort of play around with all of these elements. You don't have to do like a super long exposure. You can do maybe even just very, very short exposures, like with a very fast shutter speed to capture the explosion of the waves on the rocks, things like that. Sometimes it's just the details that make the photograph stand out. The gentle waves lapping or crashing, whatever you're sort of seeing in that moment, photograph it. It could be the warm glow of the first light hitting the lighthouse or the serene stillness of the morning sea. Could be the complete opposite if you jump back to that episode I was talking about where I got hit by a rogue wave in the wintertime. But again, it's one of these things where you just have to sort of feel out the vibe of the morning and capture what really draws you to that scene. Now, one of the challenges and joys of sunrise photography is that sort of unpredictability of the weather and the lighting conditions. Each sunrise to me is unique and you never know exactly what you'll get. Sometimes you'll get lucky. Sometimes as I've gone out and the weather apps and everything will say it's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be, partly cloudy with, like streaks of pink and blue in the sky, and it's overcast and there's nothing out there and you've just driven an hour for nothing. So while this can be frustrating, it also pushes you to adapt and find the beauty in unexpected conditions. For example, if you go back to that episode a couple of weeks ago, maybe, where I went out to Gampo and I encountered heavy fog just before sunrise. Initially, I was disappointed because I'd hoped for clear skies and a vibrant sunrise. However, the fog slowly lifted and it created this very ghostly, ethereal atmosphere with diffused light and soft muted colors. The lighthouse on the rocks slowly emerged from the mist, adding in a very cool kind of sense of mystery and depth to the photographs. It turned out to be one of my favorite shoots, reminding me sometimes that the best images come from unplanned moments. Now, for those looking to improve their sunrise photography, here are a few tips. Number one, scout the location. I always try and visit the location at least ahead of time to sort of scout around and find the best angles. Knowing the terrain, potential compositions can save you valuable time in the actual shoot. Now, bonus points is if you go out there the day before so you can sort of get a lay of the land, but pinch for time, just going out there earlier than you need to, not just down to the wire, will also help you. 2, check the weather. I've got multiple weather apps on my phone that can help me check the forecast and give me a better idea of what to expect. Overcast skies still can produce beautiful diffuse light, while clear skies might offer a vibrant sunrise, but they also might just have a boring sunrise, Arrive early, as I said, number one. Give yourself plenty of time to set up and adjust for the lighting conditions. Arriving early also means that you can find a good spot without the pressure of rushing. Rushing can mean major mistakes, like knocking your camera in the darkness, losing stuff, dropping lenses while you're trying to switch things out. All of that, just get there early so you're not rushing. Take the time to do it right. Number 4, experiment with filters. As I've reviewed before, K&F, ND filters, graduated filters, polarizers, they have it all, and they're affordable. These all can enhance your shots. Experimenting with different filters can help you achieve various effects and moods in camera without the use of Photoshop and all that. Number 5, be patient. Sometimes the best light comes before or after the sun has just risen. Don't just pack your shit up and leave when the sun is above the horizon. Patience is key to capturing these fleeting moments, magical moments. You never know. There could be a boat that kind of comes through the scene, and if you're like got your camera in your bag, it's gone. Number 6, and last but not certainly not least, is, what do you think it is? Post-production. Yeah. Don't underestimate this. Like, don't try and be all like, get it right in camera, that sort of thing. Adjusting your exposure and contrast, boosting those colors, making everything balanced. Lightroom, especially, maybe even Photoshop, offer powerful editing capabilities to your images. Photography isn't just about capturing the moment, it's about experiencing it and sharing it. So each trip to Gampo, with or without the sunrise, it just reminds me of the beauty and tranquility of these moments. It's a chance for me to connect with nature, explore new creative possibilities, and also continue learning as I grow as a photographer. Now, before I wrap up, I want to encourage you all to get out there and explore your local surroundings here in South Korea. There are so many locations for photography, from the bustling cities to the serene coastline. Whether you're in Seoul, Busan, or a smaller town, there's always something to discover and capture. So that's it for this week. Talk to you again next week. And don't forget to keep your gear dry. It's Cheongma. It's the rainy season. Keep your batteries charged too. If you have any questions, or if you want to share your own photography adventures, feel free to reach out to me or on social media or through the podcast. Anything. At any rate, happy shooting. Take care. And I'm going to go and try and put my cat to bed as she's meowing outside the door. So take care, everybody.